So they really want to be with the company, because I'm a strong believer that people can do their best and are willing to do their best if they engage with the company. And how do you engage people with your business? I think on the one hand side, there's a lot of stuff which is in the area of feel good or not feel bad, and this is that you offer food, that you offer a nice office, that you offer benefits. But I think what's even more important is that you do offer an atmosphere to the people, which is on the one hand side challenging, because what we want in the company, we want people who are looking for a challenge. And what's also really important for us, that we do have people in the company taking responsibility. So taking responsibility for the results they are creating, taking a responsibility for the tasks they are taking on, and in the end also getting the ability to be proud of what has been created.
Welcome to Transatlantic Titans, the show for Europeans making it big in America. And here is your host, 𝗧𝗥𝗔𝗡𝗦𝗧𝗜𝗍𝗏.
Hello and welcome to Transatlantic Titans, the show about Europeans making it big in America. I'm your host, 𝗧𝗥𝗔𝗡𝗦𝗧𝗜𝗍𝗏, and I'm very excited today because we get to welcome another Transatlantic Titan. Today we have Sebastian Pohl. Sebastian, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Sebastian, how about we dive right in? Of course, we first want to get to know you, your company, why you're a Transatlantic Titan, your story a little bit better. So would you educate us a little bit about yourself, about your background? Who is Sebastian?
Yes, of course. Happy to do so. Yeah, I'm Sebastian. I'm from Germany, obviously, living for more than 20 years now in northern Germany. And I do work for Greif-Velox. Actually, I'm the CEO of the Greif-Velox group, as well as of our US entity. And we are a global packaging company serving global blue chip companies from the chemical industry, but also domestic customers in the US, for example, with our packaging solutions. And whenever it's getting a little bit tricky about packaging, so when the liquids are very sticky or the powders we want to pack are very fluffy, then the customers call on Greif-Velox and rely on our full line solutions.
Right. Not a niche product, right? But you're very successful in the market. You already mentioned that you do have a US entity, and we'll get into that during our discussion. But you're a global traveler. I know that following your travels on social media. Where are you based most of the time? You mentioned Northern Germany. Was that the company headquarters?
Yes. This is our the company headquarters, and we are based in Lübeck, right outside of Hamburg. So around about 30 miles north of Hamburg. This is where we do have our headquarters, and this is where I'm also living and spending most of my time. To the very unfortunate of my wife, who would prefer to live in Hamburg. It's a little bit more down south, but yeah, now we have settled up here in the tiny town of Lübeck.
Well, I think the right word is quaint. It's very
Yeah.
nice. Very cool place. And how long have you worked at Greif-Velox?
I'm with Greif-Velox now since 2020 for 6 years, and I did start as their director of sales and marketing. And for 2 years now, the CEO of Greif-Velox.
And how many employees do you guys have globally?
Globally, Greif-Velox does have 130 people, and actually 4 of them are located in the US.
And the majority, I would expect, are in Germany, or what's the makeup of the geographic reach, so to speak, for you guys?
Yeah, I would say that really more than 90% of the people are located at our headquarters in Lübeck. Obviously, salespeople, there's no need for salespeople to be out here. And the service people are better off if they are in the field. So there's 10 outside service field guys, which do travel the world, and 4 salespeople, which are not located here, but the rest of the company is in Lübeck.
So the headquarters are very lean because you don't need all these offices. Everybody is out on the road traveling, just like you are.
Yes, this is actually where you want the people to be. But there's one thing which is really important for us. So what we are managing really good is that actually, of course, people are working from home and we allow people to work from their home office. But believe it or not, even during the time right after COVID, when home office was still very, very popular, the people came. The people came to the office because they want to sit together, they want to work together, they want to enjoy the food of our probably the best canteen you can get in Lübeck, which we are running here. So yeah, but of course, service technicians, salespeople, and also the engineers doing the commissioning of our systems. Those guys we do want in the field. And I always say I'm very happy if I don't see them around, because then I know that they are somewhere making money for us.
And obviously, I have to pick up on that because you mentioned the best canteen. I have another clients out of Germany, and they said, if you have a really good canteen, you're not supposed to call it a canteen. They actually call it a restaurant. So they also invite the public. So maybe you want to consider that as another revenue stream.
That's a good idea. No, this is really Dani. Dani is the lady running it. She does a really good job. Everybody loves it. And actually, a lot of people use it. And whenever we have clients and visitors, they are all excited about the food. Yeah, good idea.
Typical German food, or like currywurst and spaghetti and a vegetarian option, I think are the top three now.
Actually, they are. She's really good in making really typical heavy German food. But there's also, for the last 3 years, we even introduced some healthy options. So there's always, every day there's two choices, and the people can pick from one choice, which is a veggie or a little lighter, and one like typical German food. Yes.
So one thing that I always find curious is we would probably call it more of a benefit that you offer your employees very good food, for example, or the flexibility to work from home or to travel a lot, of course, if somebody enjoys doing that. Is that a strategic approach that you, especially as the CEO, also try to foster, to implement, or is that something that just has developed over the years and you're just trying to be a good employer for your employees, whether they're in Germany or elsewhere in the world?
You mean the canteen, the restaurant?
All of the benefits that you're looking at. I would consider it a benefit, right? To have good food.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I think for me as CEO of the company, it's very important that the people working for us work here on choice. So they really want to be with the company, because I'm a strong believer that people can do their best and are willing to do their best if they engage with the company. And how do you engage people with your business? I think on the one hand side, there's a lot of stuff which is in the area of feel good or not feel bad, and this is that you offer food, that you offer a nice office, that you offer benefits. But I think what's even more important is that you do offer an atmosphere to the people, which is on the one hand side challenging, because what we want in the company, we want people who are looking for a challenge. And what's also really, really important for us, that we do have people in the company taking responsibility. So taking responsibility for the results they are creating, taking a responsibility for the tasks they are taking on, and in the end, also getting the ability to be proud of what has been created. And each and every machine we are building is different. So the people who get here and who work with Greif-Velox do find a place to work where they can really try to do their best every day, or do their best every day, where they get some purpose in taking responsibility, also being part of a company which is an old company. So we always advertise that this company is over 1,000 years old, because we tracked this back. But even being such an old and established, trustful company, there's big speed in growing the business.
So obviously you just mentioned history, and we have to pick up on that. How did you track that the company has been around for over 1,000 years? Was there a project? Was there an anniversary? I guess I missed the 1,000 year anniversary celebration. Tell us a little more about that. That's fascinating.
We basically, what we did is we always knew that there is something. The name Greif-Velox, the Greif goes back to a monastery, to a monastery where the monks were running a mill, the Greifen mill. And the Greifen mill is around about 100 kilometers from here, from Lübeck. This is where we always had people asking us about the similarity in between the name. So is there any connection between Greif-Velox and the Greifen mill? And then we really did some research and looked into the documents of the monastery, looked into some literature, and there's a book. There's a book which talks about the Greifen mill and how the Greifen mill develops the business from being a monastery, being a mill, becoming a mill which is selling milling equipment. And so we did track this back, that there's always some connection in between the monastery developing themselves to becoming a supplier of milling equipment. And actually, I would say the company, how it is today, goes back a little bit, 100+ years, to where they really started to build process equipment for weighing, dosing, and filling. And actually last year, 2025, been for 80 years in our premises here in Lübeck.
I mean, that's super impressive. As you know, I'm from like the opposite side of Germany, very far down south in Bavaria. What the monks did was brew beer. So I don't think
which is even better, right? Which is even better and more fun than just milling. But yeah,
I guess it depends on what you're milling, right?
Yeah.
But super exciting. And obviously, there's not a lot of companies around that can claim they've been in one shape or form in existence for 1,000 years or longer, or even 100 years or 150 years. But what we're trying to do with the show is to give the audience an idea kind of where do they fit in as compared to you being a guest and Greif-Velox as a company representing the German as well as American business or global business that you're doing here. So as much as you feel comfortable sharing, you already talked about your employees that you have globally. What range of revenue are you guys making globally so that somebody can say, maybe I should talk to Sebastian because we're in the same boat now. We're trying to get to the next level, or we're struggling. How can we further grow and take advantage of maybe similar growth strategies? We'll talk about the American market for you guys in particular. They can explore.
It's a 30 million euro business we are doing. Within the last 8 to 10 years, this has been really a terrific growth. So 10 years ago, this was a 10 million euro company. Now this is a 30 million euro company. And round about 1/3 of it is generated from service and spare part business. So 2/3 is new machinery, 1/3 is service and spare parts, which is also very, very interesting business for us.
And the company's typical customers, how would you describe those?
Typically, our customers are from the chemical industry or the food industry. And when I talk to friends and family or so, everybody's asking, hey, are there any customers of yours I might know? And the answer is no. Or is there any product like you are bagging or you are filling I might have seen? And the answer is no. So typically we are really in the middle because we do work with the big suppliers, for example, the Evonik's, the BASFs, the Wackers of the world, where they are producing raw materials, and those raw materials are packed and bagged to be further processed. So our typical customer is a customer on the one hand side, which is really the big blue chips, but also international companies, but also the smaller, what you would call in the US, like the mom and pop companies, which are companies with one facility, 10 million euros or $10 million in turnover, and they do have one specific product they are producing, and they will fill it or bag it for further B2B purposes. So, for example, paint manufacturers, for example.
Yeah, but that is really, at least when I look across the spectrum of clients that I represent in the US or companies that I know in the US, right? Those hidden champions, mid-market, hidden champions, as we call it in Germany, the Mittelstand. I mean, you guys perfectly fit in that description, right?
Absolutely. Yes, we do. We do. And it's a completely niche product. It's a niche market. But yeah, like you know, or like you might know from others, this is fun. Mittelstand is fun because there's not so many hierarchy, not so much politics within the companies. So you right fit in with those companies. Yes.
Yeah, maybe on that note, before we talk a little bit more about your business here in the US, do you enjoy the hierarchy, the decision makings, well, the flat hierarchies, right? The decision making authorities and maybe even freedoms that you, in particular, in your role as a CEO of a Mittelstand, of a mid-market hidden champion company have as compared to the BASFs, the Wackers that you just mentioned as being your customers?
I do enjoy it a lot. I do enjoy it a lot because I think our biggest benefit is that we can be fast, that we do have the ability to try things, to make fast decisions. And if something is not working out, you can just stop it. And with the very, very, let's say, flat hierarchy I do have together with my management team, we can really sit together and discuss what we think is best for the company and to have a direct impact with a whole lot of politics.
So, I mean, may not sound sexy when you mention Mittelstand, but right from and I hear that with so many others, from a management standpoint, that decision-making authority that you have is just so much more enjoyable rather than having to run everything up the food chain, so to speak, and then nothing gets done. And you're in a position to make quick decisions for your customers to get the product, the service technicians, whatever it may be, to them on short notice rather than needing 5 or 6 individuals to sign off. That is something neat about, at least in my opinion, about the Mittelstand. And also, to a certain extent, I would claim this is the secret to success to a certain extent, right, for Mittelstand companies, because they can act. They don't have to react and be very slow like a large vessel in the ocean. They can be a bit more like a speedboat.
Absolutely. And I think I even do not agree that this is not sexy because
It may
to
not
whomever
sound sexy.
it may not sound, but to whomever you talk, and I remember I was stuck in Washington one day, and we just walked out of the plane, and we realized, okay, we have to stay here tonight. And I was there with a group of guys from the consultancy business working for one of the big four, and we had some beers, had some dinner, had some discussions, and all of them agreed that even now working for one of the really big consulting companies and doing projects with all the big companies like BASF and Tesla and whomever, they said, hey, if I once will move back into the industry, this will be Mittelstand because I don't want to be involved with all those hierarchies and politics.
I can see that. And yeah, you just mentioned Washington. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your business in the US, shall we? So you mentioned you already have an existing US subsidiary and an existing US entity. How long has that US entity been around?
We did start this company in June 2020. So we did take a decision early 2020 and 2019 that the US market is the single biggest market if you are building packaging machines. And I'm telling everybody that what I really like about the US and what makes it interesting is there's one big country, and in this country you have more or less the same regulations when it comes to packaging. You have the same language, and within the country there's no boundaries once you're in, or more or less no boundaries. And we did take the decision right before COVID that this is our place to be for our company. And we also said, okay, you cannot run a business from Germany in the US. And so we decided, let's build a company, and let's register this company. And then COVID hit, and we had all those restrictions on traveling, and everybody was shutting down, and nobody knew what's going to happen. And we said, okay, what was right before COVID in terms of the US will be the strongest market for us, will be also right after COVID, because there's nothing what is telling us that the market will change. Maybe it starts slower, maybe it takes more time than expected. But we said, okay, let's do it and let's go this way. So since 2020, we do have this company established in the US.
So quite a lot to unwrap here, and obviously I like the approach that you've taken, which I would probably call more like the classic US market entry approach. Let's just set up an entity, let's see where it goes. We believe in the market, send a few sales guys and gals over and do some selling in the US, and then we grow, as maybe the consultants that you met at the airport would say, organically.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about kind of the market entry as a whole. It's been now, even if you're counting the COVID years, let's say give or take 5 years in the US market. So what do you guys do in the US? What does the US subsidiary currently do? Is it a sales office? Are there some manufacturing components to it? Is it sales technicians? What are the boots on the ground Greif-Velox individuals doing here in the US?
Yeah, for now, this is a sales and service company. And like you said, this was the initial idea. If we want to be successful in the US, we need to build local contact, because from my point of view, where the key to the success in the US is that Americans want to talk to Americans. They want to work with Americans, which is fine and fair. And they want to work in the same time zone. So this is why we did establish sales and service. And so in this company, we do have the service technicians, we do have sales people, outside field sales people, and we do have all the, let's say, admin and inside sales topics you need in this company. And so far, it's sales and service. And we are now moving slowly into the way where we are thinking about in our projects, you will find local content, so that we do integrate third-party components. Even in my jobs before Greif-Velox, I was always convinced that it doesn't make sense to ship steel or to ship stuff which is available somewhere else in the world around the globe. And so we are now moving into direction where we will integrate certain components, which are third-party components from US-based suppliers. So not to buy them in Europe and ship them, to buy them directly in the US, which obviously gives you some advantages those days.
I think that's a very interesting decision and approach, because there's different trains of thought when it comes to the nearshoring or local content requirements. But it sounded like, at least from your perspective, that was part of the strategy all along. Maybe the strategy was accelerated a little bit based on the tariff schemes or duties overall. But to me, it sounds like that may have been the goal from the beginning.
Yes, you're right. This was always the plan, to start this way, to start with sales and service, and to grow our project management capabilities for projects in the US. And it's only the logical next step that you can buy equipment which is available domestically in the US, because also there, the US clients do want the domestic service. So you don't want to bring in gear which can be only serviced from Europe. So you want to work with local suppliers if possible. And of course, the logical next step is to discuss partnerships and to find out how can we integrate more. So how can we, for example, build electrical cabinets in the US and integrate them in our machines? And again, this is something which was always part of the strategy, because we do live in a world where then standards hit. So you do have totally different electrical standards in the US than you do have them in Europe. And it's even a different manufacturer. So in Europe, 90% of the people are using Siemens components, and in the US, 90% are using Rockwell and Bradley components. And this also only if you think through this from a strategy perspective. And once you want to become the local player on the market, you need to adapt to those components. And it's easier, cheaper, and more logical and more effective to do this than with people in the US.
Well, to me, I'm just a lawyer here, but it really sounds like there's a huge customer service angle as well, right? You want to be close to your customers, you want to service them quickly and efficiently. And if there's a gain for them by you becoming really more of an American company or sourcing American products and making sure they're treated well locally. That looks great, at least from the outside, from a customer service perspective.
Yeah. And maybe this is not typical in the US, but a very strong demand in the US. We do see this in the whole world. Even if we do build machinery, and if we do build complex machinery, creating a lot of value for our customers, I'm convinced that even building, selling, and maintaining machinery is a people business. And even if the machinery is complex, it's people buying from people or people working with people. And this is something which I discovered early. When the first time I came to the US was when I was 11 years old. But when I came there for the first time in my professional life, 13, and stayed there for 2 years, I figured out that this is all about relationship. And we sold safety gear during those days. But this is all about people working with people and building up a very good service reputation, which is even more important in the US than elsewhere in the world.
Well, I can surely attest to that because, as you know, I'm certainly in the relationship business, and I have been fortunate enough, obviously, to follow your guys' story over the past few years a little closer on the insides. That also puts me in a position to know that where you currently are with your US subsidiary is not where you started out, right? Can you tell us a little bit about the geographic decision making, maybe from 5 years ago, and then from, I would say, about a year and a half ago?
Yeah. I think this might also be something like a classic approach. What we did 5 years ago, we did found the company together with a good and close friend of mine. A good and close friend of mine who moved to California now over 10 years ago. And when we decided to build an entity in the US, we reached out to Marco, and we reached out to Marco in order to check if he's interested in building this company with us. Marco and myself know each other from Dräger, and I left Dräger, he left Dräger, and his way made him to live in Northern California. So I reached out to him and we said, hey, are you interested in helping us out? And what Marco did is Marco did an excellent job on really building a US entity. So there's a US entity with processes, procedures, bank account, lawyer relationships, accounting, structure and partners, CPA. So everything is established, even without reading your book according to the book. So I read the book afterwards. But this was exactly the playbook Marco kind of followed. When we then, after this company was running and established, we decided that Northern California is a nice place to be. But if you are in the chemical business, this is not the place to be because all your clients are around Houston. So you want to have the company in an area where you will find your clients, and there's direct flight connections from Houston everywhere. And maybe today they closed the airport there, but this airport is open 360 something days a year. So also the decision was it's very easy to get in and out. It's very easy to get in and out also from Europe. And obviously, of course, the whole economic and legal situation around Texas is much more easy than California.
So again, I'm recognizing a certain theme here, which relates to your customers, customer proximity, being able to service them locally, and then obviously have the boots on the ground. And yes, it's probably compared to Northern California, not the biggest lifestyle decision one is making to move from there to Houston, but from a business perspective, how do you see it? You mentioned the legal business environment. What do you find maybe more attractive about a state like Texas or some of the other in the southeastern United States as compared to California from a CEO's perspective?
It's way more easier. It's way more easier because it's more straightforward, I would say. So everything what I've learned throughout this process is that's even easier than I've expected. When I remember how complicated it was to set up the company in 2020 in California, this was similar to setting up the business in Germany or setting up a business in Germany, if not even a little bit more complicated. What kind of forms do you need? Where do you need to apply? To whom do you need to talk? And yeah, building the business now and transitioning the business to Texas, building the business in Texas is much more straightforward and much more transparent. So everything goes very quick. What you want to do with the state, it's very transparent. So even as a foreigner, this is easy to understand.
Okay, so how many individuals, employees are currently with the US subsidiary? I know obviously you're responsible. You're wearing multiple hats, at least from a geographic standpoint, but whether they're located in Germany or elsewhere, or even boots on the ground here in the US, how many individual at Greif-Velox are focusing on the US market?
It's 4 people in the US, 4 people on the ground. Obviously, as this is one of our most important markets, we do have a lot of people being involved in the US business here in Lübeck. So I would say that everybody of this 130 people here in Lübeck is somehow in touch with our US business. So whether it's the guys out there in the assembly hall putting together the machines we are bringing to the US, or it's the guys in the engineering team, the people in the project management team, the sales guys supporting their colleagues in the US. So more or less some involvement for everybody.
Okay, and then of the 30 million euros in revenue turnover that you mentioned earlier, if you know or if you can guesstimate percentage-wise, how important and what percentage is the US market then for the company as a whole?
As this is project business, this is a little bit hard to say. But what you can say as a guesstimate, it's between 10 and 15% of the company's revenue, which we do generate in the US. And again, the nice thing about this is the service business, because being that much service orientated in the US, the growth in the service business is much quicker than, for example, in Europe. Because one thing is selling the new machine, but the customers will automatically ask you for like biannual service visits for inspections. Your spare part business is going up. So on the one hand side, there's a big importance because 10 to 15% is a big chunk of our overall revenue. And the opportunity we can grow the service business on a quick growing installed base is also a very, very good opportunity for us.
Okay, then of course, since you're in such a niche market, niche field, and providing such nuanced products and services to your customers, I always have to ask: is there any real competition that you have? Companies that are similar in the market or operating similarly in the market, without naming them, of course.
Yes, of course, or unfortunately, of course, there are, but it's limited. To be honest, like we discussed last time, the impact of tariffs for us is not that big because actually everybody who's doing similar things is a foreigner in the US. There's no real domestic competitor. So it's all another company from Germany and a Canadian company that we are competing with in the US market. So some of them do some local content already. So it's still that there's an impact, but the impact is not that big because you're not competing with like an American company on this.
Okay, so the strategic approach then to set yourself and your company apart from your competitors would be to hone in on the local component and obviously doing a better customer service, providing better services and being the better relationship manager, of course. But it sounds like to me this is one clear strategic move to set yourself apart from your competitors.
Yes, true.
Then maybe to switch gears back a little bit to the managerial side again, and I know you're still moving and working and coordinating among different cultures and different languages for sure. How do you approach then the maybe cultural, to a certain extent, also regulatory differences in the US as compared to Germany, Europe, and or the rest of the world?
Good question. I think cultural differences are something you can only overcome if you talk to the people and work with the people. So what I'm also highly interested in to to enable the people here in the company to travel. And so when we do have like on-site kickoffs, we do try to send the project managers there to engage with the people. When we do the on-site commissioning, we make sure that the engineers from Germany can travel and that they get a chance to really engage with our customers. We try to be very, very close to the customer throughout the whole project. So once the project is in, we do an introduction and we do follow them very, very closely. What's also a very important part is that we do spend time together with employees who are doing it for the first time to explain cultural differences to them. And I really love to share my experience with living 2 years in Houston. And since then, since 2014, traveling to the US 4, 5, up to 6 times a year. This is something where we really discuss if there is a complicated situation coming up, if visitors are coming, or if they travel to discuss, okay, if this happens, what will this mean? How do they really mean what they are saying? So it's very important for me to do this not only with the US, but also when we sell to China or travel to Korea, that beforehand we not only talk technically about the job, we also talk about cultural differences with the people. Regulatory is a little bigger thing. Regulatory is much more difficult because the understanding, and you know better than I do from a legal perspective, but also from like electrical standards or even from centimeters and meters to inches and foot. This is something where on the one hand side, for the electrical standards, we have been investing a lot of time in putting together a US design manual. So in our company, there's a design manual which we have been developing for the last 4 years, which puts together all the knowledge how to build machines for the US. And how do you need to design safety? How do you need to design electrical? How do you need to design mechanical? And this is now like a complete guide. And we did challenge this guide with some of our partners and handed over to them, US partners, and said, hey, can you just review? And the interesting thing is that it might be the same with the legal system. The regulatory system in the US is that complex that they gave this back to us and said, hey, this is really cool. We made a copy because we don't have this. And this is like a really complete guide of everything you need to know. And this is the standard we do teach to all the people and which we really apply to all the projects we do have. And it gets better and better. So in certain projects, if we go to a new state for the first time, we hire a consultant because there might be state regulations on the electrical standards you need to comply to. And whenever we learn, we add this to this manual, and this is like the Bible of how to build Greif-Velox machinery for the US.
Well, you already mentioned my book. Maybe that's a good book for you guys to publish. I'll return that, but super interesting. And it goes back to what you said, being in the relationship business, providing that, and others will benefit from that too. So one thing though that I'd like to pick up, and I think you're in a very fortunate position. And if I think about me being a German, Austrian, French, any European company right now thinking about entering the US market, I know I'll have to do it just like you did it and are still currently doing it. You need somebody at headquarters to also probably manage a little bit, oversee a little bit US operations until you have the trusted team locally. They do their show and you come for the annual board meeting and make sure everything's running properly. So how do you, from a CEO advice point of view now, what would you tell those companies to kind of manage the balance between too much oversight, too little oversight, how much oversight is necessary? What would your advice be, having done this now for quite some time?
I think the first and best advice is just do it. Don't be afraid. So don't overthink too much, because Germans tend to overthink everything and to think, okay, what happens when, what happens if, and can we do this? Can't we do this? So the first advice is just do it. And the second advice and part of the recipe is to build a relationship with someone you can trust on, and build a relationship with someone in the US entity where you can talk openly about cultural differences. So where you can really talk through the situation if something happens and you figure out, okay, this is now not a technical issue, this is a cultural issue, and then you can bring it to the table and have a discussion about, okay, why do you act like this? Why does this employee feel like this? Or that also in the discussion, your person of trust in the States can tell you, this is not the very best idea because the people would think like this. Or, wow, what you have done there made this reaction. And it's all about learning. It's about learning. It's about trust. And it's about relationship. And what I've also seen, what's not really good is once you have built this trust and once you have built your foreign entity as an entire part of your company, keep it there. So don't let it walk apart again. Keep it there. And there's even big education needed to be done in the German entity to educate them, hey, this is not just a branch. This doesn't go away. This is an entire part of our new normal in this company. And we all need to work together.
So maybe we'll flip it then to ask you, what common mistakes do you see that German, other European companies may be making when it comes to, on the one hand, doing business global, but then also doing business in the US? I think there were some great nuggets in there. Now we can dig a little deeper what maybe not to do from a CEO advice perspective.
No, I love this question because also this answer is very, very easy from my point of view. The biggest issue for Germans working with the US is that we do look alike. No one would expect that things in China, Japan, Korea, or even in the Middle East are similar to what's going on in Germany. For the US, as we do look alike, everybody expects that they do look like Europeans in the US, so they will act similar. Everything will be the same, maybe bigger, maybe faster, but the same because they do look alike. And this is from my point of view, one of the biggest mistakes. If you try to predict what's happening or try to put your expectations on the US because you think, okay, this is just the same, but on the other side of the ocean. If you do expect this, you will fail. This doesn't work. And this comes with the second biggest mistake, to be convinced that you can do better. And I think this is also something. There's a whole lot of things which are different, but there's no better because there's many places in the world which do work out where people are successful, but it's just a different way of doing things. And there's even studies about this. There's a study from Harvard about project management and which way of project management is more successful, the American way and the German way. And the result of this study is that in the end, the result is the same, time-wise and money-wise. It's just a different approach, how you manage the project. So the German way is much more structured. The American way is much more about action-based, what's happening. But in the end, the result is the same. But if you try to manage a US project with US people the German way, you will fail.
I mean, this is a great way to segue into the next part of the show, into the next segment of the show, because this is advice straight from the horse's mouth, as we would say, right? Because it's great advice, and I wish most, if not all, of my clients would take this to heart, because there's a lot of educating that comes with it culturally. And like you said, I mean, I came to the US now almost 15 years ago, but I had certain expectations as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it's going to be easy because, we look alike, we know English, we speak the language. But from a legal standpoint, I always say, the US is a completely different legal system that's based on British common law, not on the Napoleonic Code, like the German civil law, for example, or so many other European civil law systems, right? It looks the same, feels the same, tastes the same, smells the same, but it's just different, right? And maybe that is one way to look at it. But what I'd like to do next is go to the core four.
Next up, the core four.
Where we talk about past, present, and future. And
Mhm.
as you said, you kind of read my book. I hope it's still a familiar concept where I define the core four as your core four team members that you would need in the US, your lawyer, CPA, banker, and insurance broker. But it's also the same four questions that I like to ask each guest on every episode and see what they have to say. And the first one is all about challenges. So
Mhm.
in those past 5 years in the US market, what are and have been, or maybe even to this day, are the biggest challenges that you guys are facing in the US market?
Building brand and reputation, because if you're coming in as a nobody to the market and you might have a good and strong brand outside of Europe, everybody's asking for references and everybody's asking for friends, or can you tell me who's using your equipment? So I would say the biggest challenge for us is even being among the top players in our niche industry segment. It's building a brand in the US.
And how have you tackled it? And what are you doing to overcome this challenge?
There's actually different strategies. One strategy, and this is again something I really like about the US, this is the good old hardcore sales. So that the sales guy in the US, our sales guy is really, really eager on just doing good old cold calling. And he says, hey, this is my job. And in Europe or in Germany, you will run into people who know 1,000 reasons why they cannot cold call. The sales guys in the US, they just do it. And they are eager just to do it. So really hardcore classic sales. And the other thing is that we have really defined our target customers. Knowing our target customers, go and see them on conferences and events, because this is again something which works out really nice. There's a lot of events. There's a lot of really smaller conferences and shows where the people go, where the people listen to what you do have to say. And in the end, it's very, very easy to engage with the people, because the Americans will say, hey, I go to this conference to engage with others. And it's not like many Germans, I go there because I do not have to be in the office and I can listen. And if you
Company
want
retreat?
something, yes, company retreat. And if you just want to talk to me, send me an email and maybe we can make an appointment.
Right. Let's talk about lessons learned, which is the second of the core four. So now, with the knowledge you have, and if you could go back in time, what would you do different about your US market strategy, either from a market entry standpoint or now from compared to last year or 2 years ago?
I think one of the
If
lessons learned.
anything.
Yeah, no. There's a lot of lessons learned, and I would share two of them. I think the first is don't expect miracles. So do not expect that even if this is a huge market and it's a very interesting market, do not expect the market to really bump up within a year. There's no miracles waiting for you. And the second one is do not underestimate US pricing levels. So everything in the US is very, very expensive. So when you are starting the company, do not expect that lawyers or CPAs or insurance brokers will be at the same level as in Europe. So when you are building your business plan, build your business plan based on the real figures. Otherwise, it won't work out.
I'm not going to comment on the lawyers, but yes. So let's talk about a few more exciting things than lawyers. Future outlook, the third of the core four. What's your outlook or real vision as a CEO? I think you're in a position you should have a vision. What's that outlook? What's that vision for growth in the US?
I expect that we can grow our business to be 20 to 25% of the company's revenue without shrinking the other business. I really expect that once we are really there, once we are really established there, the chunk of business, the importance of the business in the US will grow. And even in those days, I think this will be the case, because the people do take their decisions faster. And I do expect that US companies will start spending money sooner than companies in the US again, because there's much more eagerness to do business. So I expect the chunk of business, the portion of our business from a company standpoint going up. And this comes hand in hand with also going into more local content in the US, because like we discussed earlier, it only makes sense if we start using domestic components and also some domestic fabrication.
So let's talk about the last of the core four then, which is about success factors. What do you think sets successful European companies here in the US apart from the quote unquote not so successful ones, the ones that may never reach their full financial potential, or even worse, exit the US after a few years or sooner?
The difference between the successful and the non-successful companies is that you cannot be successful in the US with remaining a foreigner. Only a few companies can do this. So if you really want to be successful in the US, I'm convinced that you need to build a US entity. You need to build a management team with US people, basically build a real US company and not try to win the market as a European, let's say, as a European guest. And this all comes with the stuff we just discussed. Don't expect that the people are similar. Don't expect that the culture is similar, and do not expect that you can do better, because business in the US is done the American way.
It's a great way to get to the next segment of the show, which is rapid fire, this or that.
And now, rapid fire, this or that.
I'm going to ask you 6 questions. You can only pick one answer. And of course, I tried to, knowing you for a little bit now, tailor those 6 questions closer to your situation.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Question number 1, California or Texas?
Texas.
Question number 2, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Number 3, early morning meetings or late night strategy sessions? And I'm going by looking at the time when you're sending me emails.
The early morning.
Suit and tie or business casual?
This really depends on the situation.
You have to pick one. You have to pick
I
one.
have to pick one, business casual.
But when is it a good occasion to wear suit and tie?
For example, if you were meeting your banking people.
To look serious when it comes to that. But okay, number 5. I think I know the answer to that. Risk taker or cautious planner?
The risk taker.
And number 6, email or phone call?
Phone call.
So that concludes the rapid fire, this or that. And now, final segment of the show. One question I wanted to ask is, what partnerships or specific collaboration that you may have had over the years in the US has been key to your guys' success so far?
You mean with external partners?
Yeah.
Which is I would say the most, I would say the most critical one is the one with the CPA, because there's a huge difference also in the way how people do approach accounting, and building this up from outside of the US is very, very difficult, and you need someone who's really following your process for a long time. And once you get this established, this need completely goes away. So I would say this is probably maybe the most important. But then there's 2 more, and this is because the system is that different. And the 2 more are the lawyer and the insurance broker.
Then let's talk about maybe those first impressions
Mhm.
or culture shock experiences you may have had about doing business in America. Anything that comes to mind that you'd like to share?
I think in the end, the cost. I would say it's really the cost. And if we do talk about a culture shock, or the first moment where I personally thought, okay, what are we getting into here? Of course, we did create a business case, and we did talk to some people, and we did make some assumptions what things would cost. And once we started to really collect offers and get the first engagement letters in for signature, I figured out, okay, this is even more important, even more expensive than we could never ever have assumed.
Yeah, the costs and the fees and also salaries, I would say, are certainly higher than what we're used to in Europe, and
Europe.
that sometimes is an unpleasant surprise. But I also try to educate my clients on it. Well, you also don't have to charge the same amount of money for your products and services in the US, right?
this is all true, and I think this is for the one driving the business or for the one in charge. This is possible to understand. I think it's also a hard fight, and even with being a Mittelstands company and not having so many people you need to explain this to, you always have a lot of people who are interested in a lot of stuff. And then you will be in the position where you have to, on the one hand side, negotiate the salary of the sales guy with the sales guy, but you have to explain it to your CFO, to your HR, and maybe for whatever reason, the Workers' Council in Germany gets aware of it, and you have to discuss it for a third time why you are paying someone in their eyes a fortune, which might be a normal salary in the US.
And that probably comes in, like you said earlier, you have to do a lot of educating in headquarters or at headquarters as well about American business on a complete managerial approach, right?
Yeah.
And not just one way stream. You also mentioned that you lived in Houston for 2 years. Obviously, when I traveled to Germany and anywhere else in Europe, people expect me to wear my cowboy boots and my hat and my belt and leather bucket. What's Houston like? Any habits, American or what's Texas like? Any Texas habits you've picked up? And what is it really like from you who's lived here for 2 years, came back to Germany? Do you miss it? What's the cultural experience and education you can share here?
Actually, I do. Yes, I think there's a couple of things you can say about Texas, and what I do miss most is, from my perspective, everything is easy, and it's part of the Texas lifestyle that things are easy. Everything is available. People like to enjoy themselves. People like to work hard and achieve, but at the same time, they just have a good living. Like it's warm and sunny most of the time throughout the year, and the people like to be outside. Yes, during the summertime, everybody starts to complain about the humidity, but still they do spend time outside, or they just sit inside where everything is air conditioned. So it's the lifestyle. Texas has a certain lifestyle, and even if you say everything is bigger in Texas, yes, this is true, kind of, but this is also part of the lifestyle which I really liked after I got used to it. And so yeah, I'm really excited about coming back multiple times of the year. It's always a little bit like coming home.
The home away from home. And
Yes.
you certainly get the best of both worlds, and maybe that's the secret to happiness then as well, right? If you
Yeah.
give them life advice.
Yeah, if you have the choice, I think the magic is to have the choice, or the miracle is to have the choice.
Speaking of choice, you are the CEO. If you could have dinner with any American, Texan business leader, CEO, past or present, who would it be and why?
Never thought about this question. Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. For maybe the answer is to ask if he really was the first man on the moon, or if this was just a shot in the studio. No.
Desert of Arizona.
Yes, or in the desert of Arizona. No, because I think what those guys did is really an entrepreneurial and kind of a hero story. When I've been living in Houston, I had a lot of people coming in from Germany to visit me, friends, family, colleagues, and everybody was asking, "Hey, can we go to NASA?" And I said, "Yes, sure. We can go alone because you might have been there many, many times." And I think I've been to NASA 24 times. And I only go Sundays because Sundays they do open up also the mission control when you go with the train. And then I told everybody I love to go there because this is rocket science and this is where they fly to the moon. And this whole story is about, on the one hand side, heroes, technology, and it's about taking risk and getting a big payback about it. And the chance for Neil Armstrong to come back alive was 1 to 1,000 that he's not going to make it. But he got into this rocket and he was the first man on the moon. So I think that this would be my choice if I can pick just one person.
And then if you had to pick one thing that you really love about doing business in the US that's different from Europe, what would that be?
Faster decisions, that you can make faster deals with the people, and that you know where you are at, at a very, very early stage of your business relationship.
I'm a listener. I'm watching our conversation on YouTube right now, and I'm making the fast decision that I want to connect with Sebastian. I want to reach out to him, pick his brain. How can our audience, how can our listeners, our viewers connect with you? What's the best way to reach out? If you even want the fandom of people picking your brain on US business strategies.
Yes, of course. I'm always happy to share, and I'm always learning myself from sharing. So I think the easiest is LinkedIn. So you will find me on LinkedIn or email, or just give me a call.
We'll have all your contact information that you're willing to share in the show notes. And I certainly encourage the audience to connect with you, because every time I'm doing these interviews, I'm learning. I'm being educated on the business side. I try to provide value as well. And you're the prime example again. Learned a lot. And I'd like to kind of leave with two final questions. A personal quote or motto that guides you in business and life. You already said, just do it. Right?
Just do it. Yeah, just do it. Just do it.
And then the final question, and that can be totally non-business related, but anything that excites you or interests you in life, anything you personally enjoy right now, aside from the traveling?
My family. I would say my family. It's spending time with my family, seeing our little daughter grow, travel with my family, and using the opportunity to spend as much time as possible with them.
I mean, that's the perfect way of ending this episode. But as you know, every good or well-drafted contract in the US should have a catch-all in the end, and to the benefit of the company. So anything else you'd like to share? Anything we may have forgotten to cover in this episode?
I don't think so. Thank you for having me. It was great fun. Yeah, and if I can help anybody, happy to do so. Happy to connect.
Well, Sebastian, I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy day to answer a few questions. Like I said, I find it very, very interesting. Most importantly, I wish you personally and Greif-Velox nothing but the best for the future. For the next 1,000 years in business, well, I guess we'll find out if the two of us will be around to celebrate the 2,000-year anniversary. But thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. Nothing but the best. And that's it for today.
Thanks for having me, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, before you sign off. There are a few in-person events I will be presenting at soon. On February 5th, 2026 in Stuttgart. On February 11th, 2026 in Cologne. And on February 12th, 2026 in Frankfurt. All, of course, in Germany. Please consider registering. And if you do, please reach out to let me know. There's nothing like meeting in person. The registration links are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends and family. Also, please interact with me by liking my episodes, or better yet, leave a comment and review. I would love to hear from you. And yes, I personally read all the feedback and comments. Now, this time for real. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.